hi, hello, hi, I am Honestly Nay, and today I'm talking to you about how I became a sexuality professional. So here's how things are going to go. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey, and then I'm going to answer your questions I got directly from my Instagram. My Instagram is one of the best places to keep in contact with me, keep up with the things that I'm doing, and see when I'm releasing new things. So make sure that you are following me on Instagram at Honestly NAE. Another great place to make sure that you can keep up with all the things that I'm doing is my website, honestlynae.com. Go on and skedaddle over there, sign up for my newsletter where you can get all the information about the things that I'm doing and some cool and exciting news whenever it's on its way out. Okay, so my path to becoming a sexuality professional really started when I was in high school. I was really interested in sex and sexuality and in the human body and in emotions and in feelings and in humans because humans are weird. And so I would watch a lot of Skinamax, which is Cinemax, after 10 p.m. And some of my favorite shows to watch would be Real Sex. I really liked Real Sex because they were stopping people on the street and asking them these questions and making these questions normal. And you were seeing a whole range of responses. So there were the people who were really surprised to be asked these questions. There were the people who were really down to answer these questions. There are people who were learning things from their partners, from their friends, and all because, someone was brave enough to go up to them and say yo, I want to ask you this question. Are you cool with me asking you this question? And even from that, I really learned that, sex and sexuality can be just a conversation. It can be a normal thing that you're just exploring and you're just getting into and you're just having fun with. And sometimes it's awkward, and that's okay. And Real Sex really normalized the humanness of it. And then it also provided a lot of education and information about what's going on in the porn industry, or how sex toys are made, or how other cultures are navigating sex and sexuality. And so that TV show made me really feel, enlightened, and it made me feel like I could go up to people and talk to them about the things that I was learning. My second favorite show on Skinamax was Cat House, which was a show, it was a reality TV show that followed a brothel in Las Vegas. And they would talk to the different working girls, to the different sex workers about what their experience was like being a sex worker, and who were their clients, and how are they navigating this, and how are they going in and out about it. It also provided a lot of information and education on sex work as a whole in terms of how the laws were operating. Because in Vegas, sex work is legal in this brothel because it's in this one place in Vegas. And they talked about how in the rest of the country, you can't find a brothel like this. Two sex workers living and are working in the same house is a brothel. And so that's illegal, except for this tiny little pocket in Las Vegas. And from there, they gave us a lot of information about how sex work was kind of looked at all over the world. Not a lot of information as I'm recalling, but I did take it upon myself to do my own research and learning about the red light district in Amsterdam, learning about how sex work operates in France, and how learning about how sex work operates in Japan, and how this is actually a skill. This is something that people invest their time and their money in, so that way they can become entertainers. They can become this product, this entertaining piece of art that people are actually going to want to pay for and want to engage with. And so it was really fun just to start to look at how sex work operates and how people's attitudes and understanding of sex work differs based on who they are, where they are, what they know, their comfortability with such. And then also just to see these sex workers who were just yeah, this is my job, this is the thing that I do. Some of them really loved their job, some of them didn't like their job. They were given tips and tricks about how they get through their job. And again, it was normalized for me. It was normalized that this is something that people are actually doing and actually navigating with. And sometimes it's awkward, and sometimes it's just a job, and sometimes this is all you're fit to do. But again, it's normal, and people are having a variety of different reactions and experiences to engaging in this kind of work. But my absolute favorite show, the show that has brought me here right now in front of this screen to you, was Talk Sex with Sue Johansson. I loved Talk Sex with Sue Johansson because it was just education. I was just learning every night. I was learning about the neurosystem, about orgasms, about positions, about navigating emotions. And I was learning it all from this little old white lady. And I remember having very clear, like my memory is so clear, and being like, if she can do this, I can do this. I don't know how to do this, but obviously this is a job that can be done. And so in watching that, I would go back to school the next morning and be like, yo, do you know what the epididymis is? Let me tell you about reproductive anatomy and the testicles and how they're connected to the vas deferens. Just being really excited and wanting to share this information and this education with my peers. And again, normalizing that sex and sexuality is just a part of being human. And so I graduated from high school and I went to I did my first year of school at FAMU. Shout out to my Rattlers if you are watching. FAMU, like a lot of historically black colleges and universities, is very expensive if you are out of state. It was very expensive for me because I was out of state, and I ended up getting a scholarship to the University of Missouri, Mizzou. So I transferred my sophomore year and I graduated from the University of Missouri. And while I was at the University of Missouri, they had a class called Human Sexuality and Anatomy or something along those lines. And I had already planned to take said class. And I remember one day I was walking around campus, I might have been like in the student center or something, and this person walked past me and they had on a polo that said SHAPE, Sexual Health Advocate Peer Educators. And I was like, yo, whoa, hold up, whoa, who are you? What are you doing? Where are you going? How do I get a polo? What are you doing? And we actually had a SHAPE program at my school. So they trained us in human sexuality, and then they also trained us in how to craft a workshop, how to present a workshop, how to answer questions, how to manage a classroom, how to take your own style and your brand of educator and present and use that to engage in conversation and deliver sexuality education to students at the university, organizations at the university, and also organizations in our community, because Columbia, Missouri, where Mizzou is a college town. And so other organizations would ask for SHAPE to come and talk to their organization. And so I took the human sexuality class, which was worth credits. It was a semester-long class. And then I sent an application to be in SHAPE, and I had my interview process, and I told them all about my love for Talk Sex with Sue Johansson and how I wanted my own sexuality talk show one day. And they were like, you're hired. And that is where I met the head of SHAPE at the time, Heather McPherson. And Heather was real cool. She was, very open and engaging, and she was a white woman who knew that she was a white woman, and so tried really hard not to show up violent and colonized like sometimes white women who don't put that energy and effort into correcting their behavior can do. And so that was really cool to be able to see in being an educator, she's actually a person who's a lot more receptive and a lot more empathetic and a lot more knowledgeable and open to the people around her and to our differences, and aware of our differences, and not afraid to grapple with the fact that there are some identities that we have that are different, and so that changes our perspectives. And it was really cool just as, an undergrad to be I saw Talk Sex on TV, which is some mystical far off place, but here's a person in front of me who actually is doing this job. This job of working in sexuality is so much closer to me now because I'm in this program. And it was really fun being a SHAPE educator on my campus. I always like to say that I had a trial by fire because I was presenting to my peers. So I was presenting to my friends, people who knew all my business, people who knew what I was navigating with, what I was dealing with at the time, what I was feeling insecure of at the time. And so here I am trying to teach this workshop on sex and sexuality, and they're asking me questions that are mirroring my life because they know my life. And because of that trial by fire, it made me so much more comfortable answering questions. It takes a lot to shock me. And I notice when I teach definitely middle school and high school classes that they try to ask questions to shock and stump you. You can't shock me. I've had a trial by fire. I am like solid, like hardened iron. We in here, right? And it was so much fun just to be able to like be me and be real and be talking to these organizations like me and not having to code switch, not even thinking about, you know, how am I going to present this any other way than how I'm about to go over here and present this. And so by the time I graduated, I had been in shape for 2.5, 3 years, just working at my college campus. I got to do a really cool workshop at a nursing home because they had a syphilis outbreak. Because if you can still get it up, you should get it in. And if you want to get it in, you should get it in. But we had to talk about the fact that, you know, even though your body can no longer make babies, STIs are still a thing. And it was so much fun, like talking to all the residents at the nursing home and being like, everyone needs to take their antibiotics and you all need to abstain for 2 weeks. No sex with anybody for 2 weeks while the antibiotics kick in, and then you get tested again and you make sure that you're good. And it was really funny just hearing like their perspective, like, oh, I got syphilis, man, whatever, I'm old. And it's like, okay, but like, I want you to be able to engage in pleasure for as long as you can. So take your antibiotics and abstain, you know? And I remember when I got that assignment being like, ooh, this might be interesting to have to go and do this. But again, normalizing the conversation, acknowledging that this shit can be awkward, acknowledging that sometimes I don't have all the answers. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways that I got from Shape is I am so comfortable saying I don't know. I can be in any workshop, and if you ask me a question and I don't know the answer, I'm gonna tell you I don't know the answer. But I'd bet money I know how to find the answer, or I know a person who does know the answer, and I'll come back around to you. Right? And so that also helped me in being an educator and showing up and being real. Just the fact that, you know, being able to say, I don't know. So I graduated from the University of Missouri, and then I got a job at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, one of my favoriteest jobs ever, being an edutainer. So being able to teach, and then also we put on a lot of shows. We did education through entertainment, and so I got to pretend to be a pirate and talk about, what do I talk about as a pirate? Because they don't even do that show anymore because the science of that show was disproven. So they don't even do that show anymore. I got to do lung dissections. I got to spacewalk in our space exhibit and stuff. And so that was really fun and helped me as an educator with using my body and being engaging and pulling people in to get this education and this information, right? From there, I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Rwanda. I was in Peace Corps Health 6, so the 6th cohort of people to go to Rwanda after the genocide. I lived at a health center compound. That was my site, was a health center compound on top of a mountain with no running water and no electricity. The only volunteer in Health 6 put on a site with no running water and no electricity. But fine, I did it. But did I do it? Because I didn't finish my 2 years. I left early for reasons. That's a different story for a different time. But I really did get the opportunity to, you know, kind of embed myself, or at least attempt to embed myself in community. I did a needs assessment of my community of about 8,000 men, women, and children in Ruganda and found out that some of our biggest issues that they were navigating was HIV, malaria, and I also would teach lessons about Depo-Vera in very bad Kinyarwanda. Kinyarwanda is what they speak in Rwanda. So that was really fun. And from that, I learned kind of like resilience and grit. And if you don't succeed, try again, or don't, you know, do what feels good for you. Like I said, different video for a different time. When I came back home, I worked at Planned Parenthood. I moved to Omaha, Nebraska, and I worked at Planned Parenthood of the Heartland, which was a horrible experience for the first 8 or 9 months of my job. Different story for a different time. But when I got moved into Omaha, because when I got hired to work in Red Oak, Iowa, where there were issues, and then I was moved to Omaha, Nebraska, where I flourished. And what I really loved about working at Planned Parenthood is that we were responsible for booking our own programming. We were responsible for going out in the community and finding people who wanted education. And so when I got into Omaha, I was the only Black educator at Planned Parenthood. So all the Black organizations were like, yo, come do the things. And so we had a certain quota to hit. You had to do so many programs a month. And every month I was way over my quotas because I was here killing the game. And it was really fun to be able to be there and providing sexuality education. I also did a lot of birth control education at the health center and doing like motivational interviewing for people who are interested in getting birth control while I was at Planned Parenthood. While I was working at Planned Parenthood, I got the tiniest grain of motivation to go to grad school. And so I went to grad school. And I went to Adams State University and I got my master's in clinical counseling. But during that process, I actually started Honestly Nay, my education and consultation business, in 2017. Right before I went to grad school. And so what I did as soon as I started my business is my business plan was, I want to make sure people know who I am. I want to get out there and I want to make sure people know me. So I dyed my hair purple and green and I hit the conference circuit. I went to all the sexuality education conferences that I had learned about while I worked at Planned Parenthood, and now I was going as myself. And so I just wanted to get in people's faces and be like, hi, I'm Shanae. This is what I'm interested in. Boom, boom, pow. How do I do the things? Where should I go? Who should I be talking to? And in doing that, it really helped me get to a place where I am now, where I don't have to run around and try to get into people's faces. People who want the kind of education that I do know to come to me. And so that's really exciting to be able to not have to like hustle and grind anymore so much, because I'm still hustling and grinding, but not have to hustle and grind with like getting myself out there. This is Adonis. He is Adonising. And so as an educator with Honestly Nay, I've been really fortunate to teach workshops at universities, in my community. I host my own programming, which you can learn about on my website and on my Instagram. And it's been a really, really fun experience. Some of the main things that I get called for to do now are things related to kink, related to pleasure, anything at the intersection of being Black and queer, anything at the intersection of being femme, the divine feminine, the divine masculine, tantra, trauma, mental health, and sexuality. And I'm learning more and more every day. And I love it when people hit me up and they're like, hey, can you come talk about blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, yeah, I know. I have a book that I haven't read that has information about that. I'm gonna read that book. I'm gonna put together a workshop and I'm gonna be there for you. So it's been a lot of fun, and it has definitely been a journey getting to this place that I am now. And I'm so excited to think about what's going to come in the future. I can't play with you, sir. I'm making a YouTube video. I think that's all that I have to say about my story. If you have questions about what I've been doing, make sure you drop them in the comment section down below or send them to my Instagram. And speaking of Instagram, let's get to the questions that y'all left for me in the social medias, in my DMs, in the Instagrams. Let's see. Okay, first question. What are some ways to stay encouraged, especially dealing with burnout? I remember something that I forgot to say. So I am getting my PhD right now in clinical sexology from Modern Sex Therapy Institutes, which you can also learn more about at my Instagram and on my website. In my quest of becoming like a sexuality professional, this is the next step I feel like is for me, is getting my PhD, because I'm really interested in impacting the field. There are so few Black sexuality educators, sexuality academics, Black sexuality academics out there. And so a lot of the things that I'm interested in knowing about, all those things at the intersection of Black and queer and social justice and kink and everything that I want to know, isn't out. And so I'm really interested in contributing to and impacting the field by doing that research and tapping into those things that really interest me. This question says, what are some ways to stay encouraged, especially when dealing with burnout? And That to say that I do feel very crispy and burnt out right now because I do a lot, because I have a lot of plates spinning all the time. Being a sexuality educator, being a mental health clinician, being the co-founder of a collaborative, there's a lot. And so I'm feeling very burnt out and crispy. And some of the ways that I stay encouraged is by doing education that I find interesting. So teaching about the things that are really interesting. I get asked to do like introductory courses, and I'm so bored with introductory courses. I'm ready to do like level 2, level 3 things. And so pitching that, like, can we do something a little bit more advanced? Can I do something that's actually going to keep me engaged? Another thing is taking breaks, which I know in hustle and grind culture is really hard to do. And I also need to be taking my own advice. But I take off the entire month of May for my birthday. This spring, I'm going to Europe. This summer, I'm doing things. And I'm going to Barbados at the end of the year. That's what's happening this year. But after I finish my PhD and I graduate, I've been telling people I want to take a year off. And people have been looking at me like, stop lying. And I've been looking at me like, stop lying. So I do want to take like 6 months off or more. Minimum of 6 months, just to like rest and recharge. So teach things you're interested in. Always be learning things that are fun to you. Plan your breaks and take them. Plan your breaks and take them. And allow yourself to have grace. You know, if you can't teach this class, you can't teach this class. If you can't write that paper, if you can't read this book, you can't. The world's on fire. We're still in the middle of a panini. You know, give yourself some grace and give yourself some slack. Next question. How has becoming a sexuality professional changed your personal relationship? Really good question. When it comes to like dating, I think that a lot of the people who were interested in dating me were interested in dating me because they knew who I was. They knew that I was going to be this like open, sex positive person. They knew that I was into kink and that I kinked safely and that I could teach them how to do the things. And so I feel like people who were interested in dating me kind of had expectations, or at least had some interest in me. My current partner, because I'm currently in a monogamous relationship, was interested in dating me. Actually, my current partner was interested in dating me because they also knew who I was and they had this idea of me, and that idea has been shattered because I be at home in my sweatpants and not out like taking over the world like they thought. But they do get the benefits that come with being, you know, with a professional dominatrix, with a sex positive person. So yeah. When it comes to my professional lives, I love my colleagues. I love my mentors. They're all my friends. They're all my boos. They're all my babes. I love being in this community and being around these people. It's a lot of fun. I have run into like people who are sex negative being like trying to be negative about what I'm doing, and I just pivot. We don't gotta interact, you know. And so I think that I'm really great at setting boundaries. I think that my confidence and my knowledge of self is already a detractor from people who I ain't got no business interacting with anyway. And so I think being a sexuality professional has had a positive impact on all of the relationships in my life, for sure. Do I need a master's degree to be a sexuality professional? No. Academia is very classist. It has done a lot of harm to bodies of color and femmes of color. And I say this as a person who is like actively submitting applications to try to teach at a university, because I love teaching, because I love having deeper conversations, because I love really getting into the grit and the knit of stuff. But I also am aware of the fact that academia can be very harmful for bodies and identities like mine. That said, my path to becoming a sexuality professional was definitely academic. Like I said, I'm in a PhD program right now. But I do not think that you have to go to school. You don't have to get degrees to do this profession. You do need knowledge though. You should be taking classes. You should be reading books. You should be getting information. So the only difference between me and maybe a person who doesn't have a degree is that degrees kind of give you like credit. They give you a stamp of approval from this higher institutionalized, colonized thing. And so when I walk up, when I'm like applying to these universities and they're saying, oh, she has her master's from this accredited school, she's getting her PhD from this accredited school, all this says to them is that I read the things that I was supposed to read and I have a stamp of approval that says that I know this information. A lot of syllabuses for universities are free on the internet, and so you can read the same books and have the same lessons that were being taught in university without going to university. That said, sometimes because you don't have that stamp of approval from an accredited organization, that means that you need credit elsewhere. And so that looks like teaching workshops. That looks like getting out in the community. That looks like getting in people's faces and making your presence known. Because I don't know that you're around and available to do the thing if you don't be around and available to do the thing. So the short answer is no, you don't need a degree. And I don't even think having a degree makes it easier. Maybe it's easier because you get connections and you get information faster, but everything that you want to know is on the internet. You just got to look. And once you find one way in, then you find colleagues, you find your tribe, you find your peoples, and you're just going to be able to grow and continue from there. This being a sexuality professional, especially like if you are an entrepreneur with it and not working at like a Planned Parenthood or a reproductive justice organization, takes grit and it takes staying in it. And you don't need a degree to have grit and to stay in it. Next question. What is the money like? I am an entrepreneur, and being an entrepreneur means some months are real flush and some months ain't. It also means that you have to have good professional skills of like managing your money and setting your rates. Are there sexuality educators out there pulling in 6, 7, 8 figures? Yep. Are there far more of us who aren't? Yep. Do people have 9-to-5s and do this on the side? Yep. Can you make this your career? Yep. Everything is possible. The only limitations are going to be the amount of work and the amount of energy that you're going to be willing to put into it. So getting coaching, having people around you that can help you navigate this field is always something that I'm going to recommend to help you be a lot more successful in it. And this video is getting long, so I'm going to end it right there.